nice golden sun out. The Philippines has their first gold medal in 97 years. We're going to tell you all about that as the morning progresses. But we are golden here in the KUM News Zoom room as well because we have two veteran podcasters. And we can say that because Glenn and Josh of the Hafa Adai Yu podcast are now on podcast number 2. So guys, you're no longer rookies and you are now podcast celebrities. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hafa Adai to both of you. Josh, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so I want to talk about all about what the ride and what the journey has been since you've gotten into the podcasting world. But I guess we'll start at the obvious question, right? What has been the feedback and the reaction since episode 1 came out? Because we had video and audio. We put it on every single platform. I know, Glenn, you said you were basically nervous as hell going into this thing. You were even messaging me. It's like, oh my gosh, T-minus 45 minutes, T-minus 30 minutes. I was like, Glenn, don't worry, man. We'll take care of it. But how was that like when it actually came out, and what's some of the reaction you got?
In the beginning, like I said, Chris approached me with this couple of months back, and we were at the height of the pandemic, the lockdown, and I'm like, I know nothing about what a podcast is and such, and I researched it, looked up on some, like, oh, okay, you just sit and talk. So I'm like, wait, I don't want to do this by myself. So, when Josh, was hanging out with me, I approached him with the idea, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let's go try this out. And here we are.
So Josh, how about you? Like anybody kind of like playfully teasing you, or just saying like, oh, I heard it, I watched it, like it was inspiring, it was super cool, or there was like, oh my gosh, you guys have a show now?
Well, a lot of it stemmed even from the interview that we did for you guys for Pride Month. But it was after, I believe, the first episode aired. A lot of people actually reached out to me about coming out. And that was unexpected. Like, I was not expecting that kind of positive response from the community. Mm-hmm. It was just shocking because I didn't know that there were still so many that were still in the closet about who they really want to be. Mm-hmm. And reaching out to me. And the whole time I'm looking at Glenn, I'm like, what do I say? What do I do?
And I told Josh, just be yourself, just be you. This is what it's all about. And, for me, my whole point is about awareness, visibility, education, and, being an educator. This was the whole point. And, just sharing who we are and, the community. Mm-hmm. We're just everyday people from different walks of life.
Now, I'm sure that, your own story of courage and, your struggle as you both, not backed away from, like the journey you've both been on. When you did come out, Glenn, you had a very, very funny story, and Josh, yours was very emotional as well. I'm sure this is a story you've told, dozens, if not hundreds of times to people privately, or, Glenn, as you said, counseling people, giving advice, but to say it in a forum like a podcast that you knew was going to be 100% public. You see, when we put it on Facebook, it's got like the little globe. It's like everybody can see this and everything. Was that any different, or now did you actually see that as an opportunity, and now you have a platform to share your message and to empower others?
Yes, and my worst fear was the backlash. But for the most part, it's been positive so far, and we're very grateful, that we're reaching out to everyone, and if we can help one person or one family go through this, then that's all that we need.
How about you, Josh?
I kind of feel the same. For me, it's also about teaching people, proper pronouns, awareness, how to interact with somebody. It's basically everything. Like, even people who don't know how to handle coming out, people who don't know how to handle having a sibling or a child who identifies as something under the umbrella. Mm-hmm. Helping them through that, or even giving some insight, like what our experience is. Maybe they're going through a similar thing, and maybe they can have some insight through our experiences.
Mm. Yeah. Well, and I got to say, and Sabrina's here, of course, as well. And, it took Bree and I maybe about, what would you say, Bree, maybe about when we started, like, co-anchoring the news, realistically, even though, like, we became very, very quick friends when we both started working here. And, we had, like, a natural vibe and everything. But to really get, like, that on-screen and microphone chemistry and everything like that, where, I can kind of like tell what she's going to say and we literally finish each other's sentences. It took us maybe about like the first 6 months or so of doing shows and everything. You guys were like a natural fit. I mean, it seemed like you played off each other. You gave each other like the space to kind of create. Did you feel the same way, or am I just reading too much into this? Or was it a train wreck?
Well, when Josh and I, when we hang out with our group of friends, that's how we are. We all sit in a circle and we're talking and discussing, and that banter is just there. It's just when we first started, the camera's rolling. Victorious is like, okay, ready, set, go. And we had a script and we looked at each other like, say something.
Take two.
Yeah, and the first release, we could see it. We could hear the the pauses. And I'm like, man, these guys must have edited this thing so much, because we were nervous. But then after a couple of other episodes, it's gotten better. The flow.
Mm-hmm.
It has. It really has. Like, you can really see. Like, I remember watching that first episode. Like, no, why did we do that?
But at least for my money and everything, it seems like it's very, very genuine. And, you guys are, like you said, you're just being yourself and you're telling your story. You're not trying to, be too Hollywood with it, or trying, you're not trying to use some, like, fancy anchor voice that's honed over a number of years, and do that.
Are you making fun of me?
No. It's just two people. Well, it's just two people that really care, sharing their story. And
well, Jason, there is a running joke in all of our circle of friends, because I'm a teacher, so there's a certain voice that I use, and that commands the room. So, like, for example, where we just had a gathering, and the DJ was late, they didn't have a microphone, so I'm like, Glenn, you need to bless the table, and everybody was spread out. So I was like, and like, here I go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the blessing of the food. Everybody was like, who's that man talking?
They're like, hey, when did Barry White come here to like bless the table?
Yeah, right? they're like, is that Glenn? What the heck? And I always get teased for that, but it's all good. I mean,
you're like, bless us the Lord and these thy gifts you'll never find.
Yeah. So that's all of our friends get a kick out of that when I code switch and change the voice.
Glenn, I know when you go crisscross applesauce, they really get, now he's serious.
Yeah, like, boys and girls, crisscross applesauce. Time for circle time.
But when you talk about when you talk about circle time, right? And I see it on your Facebook all the time. You guys get together, and I really feel like the podcast kind of captures that, like, fly on the wall. Not necessarily talking at us, but I don't know. It's kind of cool. I get this vibe like I'm eavesdropping on you guys' conversation, which is really it's cool and it's intimate.
Yeah.
I think that's what Glenn and I were kind of shooting for, because after shooting the first episode, I just looked at him and I was like, you know what? The next one, we should just be ourselves. Like, just how we would sit down and just have a normal conversation. We should just do it like that.
But make sure don't keep it G-rated.
But you know what? It's a podcast. If you guys want, I mean, you probably don't want to use like as much profanity as like Snoop's first album and everything like that. Yeah. But I mean, you can get away with it on podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, I mean, the next question is probably the most obvious, right? Like, what can we expect as fans of the show in episode 2?
Josh?
I'm the one that remembers everything. Well, we have 2 guests on the next episode, and they kind of give insight on a lot of the stuff that Glenn and I were even unsure about going in.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, he has a background in psychology, and he kind of gave us like all the, I guess you could say, medical terms for a lot of these things, and he kind of explained some of the things to us, so we had a better understanding of what certain things under the umbrella were.
Okay, so almost like you guys did like a couch trip, talking to a psychologist.
Yeah, something like that, because like there were a lot of questions that we were unsure of, like even certain things in the acronym. There were certain letters there that we were unsure of as well.
Mm.
And we're still learning. There's still terms like non-binary, pansexual, the other labels, and I even mentioned it in that one. Don't come for us, because we're still learning a lot of these things. So even myself, So it's going to be an interesting second episode. And I believe we have some guests share their stories of identifying as trans. So definitely be something, another good show.
Right
Stay
on.
tuned.
Did you say pansexual?
Yes,
Pan?
and it's not in love with the pan frying
I
pan.
thought they like
Pans, but,
kitchen. They like in the kitchen
I
cooking.
know
You have-
there's
you
no
have this
such thing as
strange-
I never-
pansexual.
You have this strange romantic and sexual attraction to like to cast iron, but
That sounds
Oh
like
my
me.
gosh. No, so what is pansexual?
Bree, I don't think you can.
Josh,
answer.
you-
No? What?
I'm kidding.
You want me to
kidding.
take
Go ahead.
this one?
Yeah,
yes,
Josh.
Josh,
that
do
bad?
it because I'm going to open mouth insert foot again.
Wait, can we talk about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just don't be too graphic, Josh.
Well, pansexual just means you don't necessarily have a gender preference. Some people would even call it being gender fluid as far as like what you're into, but you specifically do not have an attraction to the sex that they identify as.
Got it.
Yeah.
just when you meet someone that you vibe with and you have like a wavelength in common and everything like that, it's like, somebody can say, I'm not necessarily into guys, not necessarily into girls, or however they self-identify and everything, but when I meet somebody, you're like, that's the kind
You
of
know that you like that person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it, Jason.
Boom.
Okay.
And that's one thing I think really works with this podcast is there's this like intergenerational thing where you have Glenn who's old school like me, and then you have Josh who's kind of new, and there is a different kind of worldview and perspective. Even though you're both in the same LGBTQ plus IA pansexual community, you know what I mean?
Glenn's
Yes,
like, did
yes,
you just
you're-
call me
you're right.
old?
No.
Yeah, I'm like, hello, I'm just you're younger than you, dude.
Hey, Glenn, we're like fine wine.
Off
Sorry.
zoo?
We're like kimchi. We get better with age.
That's right.
The name of the
That is
podcast is going to
right.
be titled now because of Chris. They're like, huh?
Absolutely. So second episode dropping, guys. We're really excited about this. It's the Hafa Adai Yu podcast on the KUAM Podcast Network.
Now, real quick, Glenn, before we let you go, right? Can I just ask, like, you were actually advertising, speaking of age and dating ourselves and everything like that. How was your 30th class reunion? Because you put it on Facebook, invited everybody. Mine from Sanchez is next year, so I want to know, how was that for you and your classmates from GW 91?
We are actually, well, that was one of the fundraisers, and it was a success. So we're planning our family water park day. It's going to be at PIC. So to my 91 geckos, stay tuned for that. There will be planning a dinner celebration with the all of us and our spouses for the adults only. So there's something coming up, and then you can contact me or Anna Alegre, Jenny Saraus for further information in regards to the family water park day that's coming up soon.
Very nice. And Josh,
Yeah.
how close are you to like your 10th, 15th, 20th high school reunion at this point?
Jeez, I don't know. I've never actually got to any of those.
When you stop counting and it's harder and harder to do the math and figure out like where you are, that you can tell you've been out of.
But it's
you've
also
been
liberating.
yeah.
I think, well, I know I think we'll be on our 20th this year.
Very nice.
Now, when you said the math, I was like, wait, I'm good at that. I could do this. 20th.
Okay, so class of 01 then, right?
Yes.
It's
All right,
simple
very
math,
nice.
Josh.
All right.
Well, guys, I'd say, you guys have big shoes to fill. They're your own shoes, like ironically and everything. But episode 1 was such a smash hit and everything like that. And, like you said, you learned a lot. Episode 2 is fantastic, and that comes out very, very soon on the KUM Podcast Network. Everywhere you guys can find podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Audible. We got you covered across the board. Josh and Glenn, thank you so much for making our podcast network the success it is.
Thank you, Glenn.
for
Thank you
giving
so
us the
much.
opportunity.
Thank
you
you,
so
Josh.
much, KOAM, and the link.
There you go.
All right.
And we'll see you guys in the
Next
comments
time.
because we know you guys aren't going anywhere.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye,
There
guys.
you go. It's Hafa Adai Yu podcast of the KUAM Podcast Network
Good
again
stuff.
with Glenn and Joshy at 7:31.
And
Quick.
they're both cracking up right now. And
They are, yeah.
Okay, Glenn, you can
Breeze
exhale. You can
side-
exhale
wait.
now, Glenn.
I gotta tell you guys, Bree is side chatting me like, wait, so what is pansexual? I think Josh's explanation made her More confused. I don't know. I think pansexual is like anything goes. Kind of
No,
seems
because
like anything goes.
Because Pan, the creature from mythology, Pan.
Yeah, but
Not-
it
not
also means
Peter
pan,
Pan, but
like
Pan.
world. Doesn't pan also mean like?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like all inclusive. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. At
All inclusive
7:31.
and yet nothing specific.
Got it. It's 7:31 here on the link. We'll be back with Senator Jim Moylan. All rise. That's next right here on the link. Brought to you by Pacific Point, Scavo Enterprises, ITN, and Jack in the Box.
We're on a mission. Communications continues our perpetuation of our Chamorro culture, language, and heritage, with features available to our listening and viewing audience, including streaming of Chamorro music 24